Obviously, you guys are getting a new trial, or it's been ordered. What is different this go around?
Well, a number of things. The Supreme Court gave us a new trial based on Becky Hill tampering with the jury or attempting to tamper with the jury. It doesn't matter. But they went on to talk about some of the evidence, and clearly they were disturbed during oral argument and in the opinion about how this financial crime evidence came in. Remember, they were introducing it to show motive. So why would you need the disabled son of one of the victims to testify? It's about, was the money stolen? Do they? I mean, they can prove it. The check was written from the insurance company, and Alex stole it. I mean, that's a you can get a accountant to testify to that. I think they were clearly disturbed by the fact the victims came and testified, which makes that character evidence, not 404 motive evidence. And so I think that will be stripped out. A jury, and by the way, he's pled guilty to all that. And so there's no contest that he stole the money. They don't have to prove that anymore. And so I think that 2 weeks we spent, or 2.5 weeks we spent dealing with the financial crimes, won't happen again. And I think the Supreme Court was very clear about that. There were a whole bunch of other things that were introduced that they, in a footnote, suggested might want to be looked at anew. The guns, the blue tarp, those sorts of things. But the most important thing is this. I don't believe we'll retry in Colleton County. I mean, everybody in Colleton County knew Alec or the Murdaughs. They had an opinion already. And so I don't think we're going to get much pushback from a judge in terms of changing venue. As a matter of fact, if the Attorney General wants to try this fairly quickly, he'll concede that we need to change venue, and then we'd work out where to go. I mean, it's got to be a place in terms of demographics similar to Colleton County, but there are plenty of those, and it just depends.
Is there a place or a couple of places that you would like to see the trial moved to?
I'd rather not say at this point. I mean, how do I negotiate if they know what I want?
Fair enough.
And they will watch this, you see.
You brought up the financial data, and I think that was a major component of, as you mentioned, establishing a characterization of Alec. The problem being, though, is that he has pled guilty to those financial crimes. So I wonder if, even if they don't allow the financial crimes to come into play, whether or not it makes a difference since he's already pled guilty to them.
Those don't come in unless he takes a stand, if they don't come in through this motive. And whether he takes a stand or not will be a game day decision. You never decide that before you know everything that's come into the record before then.
He took the stand in the first trial. Do you think that was a mistake in hindsight?
Well, knowing that Becky Hill was telling jurors, don't believe him, look at the way he testifies, he's going to try to fool you. She's telling the jurors that before he takes a stand. Probably was a mistake in the sense that they'd already been preloaded to find him not credible and despicable.
You guys,
and by the way, which will not happen again, I hope.
Is there anything you can do about that? I mean, is there anything that you can do to prevent another Becky Hill situation with another clerk of court?
Well, unless you've got a suicide bomber as the next clerk of court, I don't believe anybody's going to come near even speaking to this next jury. And we're going to want them sequestered to insulate them. We don't want them on social media. We don't want them basically to have cell phones. So I think they need to be sequestered and isolated so that the media storm out there doesn't influence them.
Which brings up another good question. Cameras were allowed in.
Yeah.
Do you think that cameras should be allowed in the next trial?
Sure. I don't think cameras make a difference. I think because all they see is what the jury sees, pretty much. I mean, maybe there's some out-of-jury stuff. And that's why you don't allow the jury to have access to social media. I prosecuted a guy, it's been almost 40 years ago. A guy named Pee Wee Gaskins, Donald Pee Wee Gaskins, wrote a book about it.
Right
over there.
Yeah.
And it took us 4 weeks to get a jury because you'd ask a juror, do you know who Donald Pee Wee Gaskins is? Yes. Who is he? Largest mass murderer in the history of the state. Well, could you put that knowledge aside and base your verdict on only what you hear in this courtroom? And it took us 4 weeks to find. Most people said, "No, I can't put it aside. I know he's a murdering, homicidal maniac." Um, and we were allowed to conduct attorney-conducted voir dire, that is questioning of the jurors, which is not allowed, not mandated by statute except in death penalty cases. So if the judge will allow us to have that, and I think the state would want it just like we want it, to ferret out the people who, there's some people that just want to be on a jury. The great news is that we didn't have this or much of this 5 years ago, and definitely didn't have it in 1983. People, Instagram, social media, Facebook, all of that, you can pretty well figure out where they are on an issue if they're voracious in posting. So you immediately get a slice of those people. I mean, people post, the guy got a new trial. And if we move this to another county, they're not even thinking about being on a jury. So they're going to be, their social media posts are going to be pretty honest. So between attorney-conducted voir dire and having access to that kind of material, I think it'll be much, much, much easier to get and by the way, they need to be sequestered.
There's been so much content, so much media that has been generated from the various Murdaugh cases. I think within minutes of the guilty verdict, there was a special on Netflix or Hulu or somewhere. I mean, I was shocked at how quickly uh, full-length documentaries on this case were published. Do you think that there is a single person in South Carolina that can serve on a jury that doesn't have not just a little bit of information, but a lot of information?
What we need are people who are intelligent enough to understand they're taking an oath to follow the law. The law is he's presumed innocent. It's presumed you're going to find him not guilty, one. Two, if you have any knowledge outside of what you learned in the courtroom, you're to ignore it. Now, that takes intellectual discipline.
How many times have you seen a like a trial thrown out and a new trial ordered in your years of experience as a lawyer?
I've never had one. Well, I've gotten some cases reversed. I had a murder case that I got a new trial on because the lawyer was found to be ineffective. And the state said, well, he'll plead guilty for the time he served. We'll let him out today. And of course, my client took that deal. He'd been in jail for 5 years, and he was facing another 15 under the original sentence. Now, if he gets retried, he can't get a higher sentence, but he didn't want to run that risk. I don't blame him. So most people don't go through a second trial. It gets worked out.
You guys are committed to a second trial, though. I think you've said that Alec will not take a plea deal on this.
Never take a plea deal, ever.
Do you think that the chances of a new trial coming out with a different verdict is likely?
Well, if you look at the statistics on cases that are tried a second time, either because of a reversal or a mistrial, in 60% of the time, they get acquitted. First time around, it's the other way. I mean, no, even more so. 90% get convicted the first time around.
I wonder if you guys weren't so confident in your defense the first time around that you maybe held some things back or left some things on the table. Was there anything that was left out that you planned to bring in this time?
No, I think there's some additional information we've learned since after the trial that we may bring in.
And you're not going to share it?
Absolutely not.
Well, I got to try it.
Nice try.
When I talk to people about this case, everybody wonders, everybody says, how are they getting paid? And it sounds like you guys told Craig Melvin that it's kind of, I hesitate, it's not pro bono work, but it kind of is at the same time.
We took a fee, a great fee, to represent him on a murder case. Or when the case is over, we will fulfill our contract. This idea that we're not insurance defense lawyers that bill by the hour. We take flat fees. And sometimes you take a case. I mean, I've had cases I took huge fees on, and within a month of getting hired, I figured it out, went to the prosecutor with my evidence, and they dismissed the case. So, I've made money that people say that outrageous for the work you did. And then a case like this, no, we're going to, when I say lose money, we're not going to be compensated for our time. We're going to try to find ways to pay for the out-of-pocket costs. But again, we just got the new trial day before yesterday, so we haven't really ferreted that out.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys said that it costs like
The
$600,000.
costs were, that's not us, that's experts. And we had to stay in Walterboro for 6 weeks, which was not cheap. We don't charge for travel. And I mean, it's just hard out-of-pocket costs, $600K.
Moving forward, what do you think has changed in the states? I'm not asking you to speak for them, but what do you think has changed since 2023 and now in the evidence that has been collected by the state that that will make a difference in a second trial?
For them,
Yeah.
none. They got what they got. Remember now, if you understand the context of this investigation from that night forward, you'll understand the state wasn't in the business of gathering evidence. They were in the business of ignoring evidence. On the night Maggie and Paul were killed and Alec calls 911, he's standing there with a shotgun 100 yards away from their bodies. Now, the 911 tape, when you listen to it, he said, I just found my wife and son, they're killed. I don't know if the person's still here. I'm going to drive up to the house and get a gun, and I'll meet the police officers right here. And he goes up and gets a shotgun, come back. But when they arrive, they see him standing there with a shotgun and a wife and a son less than 100 yards away, dead. 99 times out of 100, that's going to be the husband. And I think they decided that local folks that night decided. And the next day, I think SWED, when they got there, confirmed that it's the husband. I mean, they must just told us that there's a circle and people like him and relatives and whatever inside that circle. And they apparently require them to prove that they weren't the person that did it. So as a result, in the feed room where Paul's body was found, he'd been shot twice with a shotgun. They didn't gather any DNA. They didn't try to take fingerprints. They didn't try to get DNA evidence. They didn't try to get it off the bodies of Paul or Maggie. There's a fingerprint in not a fingerprint, a footprint in Paul's blood right next to his body. And we said, man, whose footprint is that? Well, they identified it. It was a Carlton County Sheriff's deputy's foot. I mean, that means they were walking all over the scene in sneakers. There was forget CSI. I mean, this was Little Rascals process a crime scene. There were tire tracks, several people testified to, that led away from the bodies out the back entrance. The fire chief told the police, we see these tire tracks. You should probably try to protect them. They drove over them, obliterated them. There are no guns. There's no ballistics. There's no forensic evidence. There's no video. There's no confession. There's not a piece of evidence. I'm talking about physical evidence that ties him to the murder. Their position is that the financial crimes, the fact he stole this money, when he heard about that $750,000 of firm money, not victim money, that he panicked, went home, and executed his wife and son to distract from that. Nothing any more imminent that day than any other day. And twice before he paid that money back to the firm. I mean, he knew he just needed to go find $750,000, and he did pay it back, by the way. It's just the murders delayed that some. But the firm was made whole, and there was nothing imminent about that. And if it was, if he's going to be caught for something, he'd be stealing money from the firm, not from victims.
Well, the biggest piece of evidence that they pointed out of the trial, and I think the sort of bombshell piece of evidence, was that Snapchat video that the prosecution says puts him within range of the bodies within minutes of their death. I mean, is that timeline incorrect?
Absolutely. You know how the coroner determined time of death? He came up and put his hand in Paul and Maggie's armpits and then guesstimated. A forensic pathologist or a coroner would have taken a thermometer and got a anal temperature, would have then had another way to measure the ambient temperature, and based on how much body uh, heat had dissipated, he could estimate to within 15 minutes the time of death, or 10 minutes, not done. Again, little rascals process a crime scene. I mean, so they say because Paul and Maggie didn't use their phone after a certain time, that's the time of death. Well, several witnesses testified that reception at the dog pens was spotty and sometimes not available for 30 minutes at a time, longer sometimes. So all that proves is their phone either wasn't being used, and by the way, simply because you stop using your phone doesn't mean you're dead. That was their argument. That's their timeline.
The defense is under no obligation to prove innocence.
Correct.
Works the other way around. But wouldn't it be easy if you guys knew who committed the murders and could say, this is actually, if you could put somebody inside that circle that SLED drew around possible suspects?
Yes, and we received some information since this trial concluded about who that possibly could be. But we can't, two things. One, I wouldn't let SLED investigate it because they're never, ever going to concede they botched it the first time. They're going to do everything in their power to gather evidence about Alec, not about anybody else. They're not to be trusted. Secondly, once a judge is appointed and we're given the ability to subpoena records, we can begin that process of trying to do exactly that. Now, again, we don't have to prove who did it. And to put third-party guilt at issue, we've got to have something substantial. So you can't just spew it out there. But we believe there are enough leads for us that we may be able to do that. I can't tell you. There's nothing to indicate Alec did it from an evidentiary standpoint, other than he lied about being down at the dog pens at a time. We don't know how that was related to the time of death.
One of the conversations I hear a lot of people talking about is, Alec has already pleaded guilty to financial crimes that'll keep him behind bars for probably the rest of his life.
Yep.
What's the point of retrying this if he's just going to be behind bars regardless?
Well, for two reasons. One, unless they dismiss it, he's never going to concede that he killed Maggie and Paul. So they're welcome to dismiss it and not have a second trial. But if they're going to try to convict or have him admit either in a guilty plea he did it, that will never happen. And he believes that if he is acquitted, maybe SLED would begin to look at, I'm sure they have other information they haven't given to us. We know people that gave them information and also gave it to us we've never heard about. So they need to do their job.
Can SLED be trusted beyond the Alex Murdaugh case?
I don't think so. I mean, David, the chief investigating officer, admitted on the stand in the Murdaugh case that he lied to the grand jury to get the indictment. In a case 2 or 3 years ago, the judge found that he had hid evidence, David Owen, and dismissed the case. So, I mean, and by the way, SLED gave him Law Enforcement Officer of the Year award after admitting he lied to the grand jury, and they got the conviction. They just wanted the conviction. The idea of making sure justice is being done, which is what the prosecutor's supposed to be doing, is an alien concept.
How is Alec doing behind bars?
Fine. Alec's a tough guy. I mean, he's acclimated well. He understands he stole a bunch of money and he's got what he deserved. He's not, there's no whining about what he pled. And he admitted, I stole the money. My reasons, I was on drugs, and he was. It just seems so easy.
I'm out of questions. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on that you think is really important that I haven't asked you about?
The best I felt about our state was when that decision came out on Wednesday. Because what they did was not necessarily politically popular. but they applied the rule of law, and the rule of law is atrophying all over this country. Not in South Carolina, not here. That decision, plus the decision they made on the legislative pay raises last year, shows they're politically independent and they're going to call balls and strikes. To me, that, and it's what my entire career I've done is practice law. It made me feel really good about our state.